The first time I realized something had shifted, it wasn't because of her. It was because her sister leaned toward me, close enough that I could smell peppermint on her breath, and said quietly, "I trust you." Not as a warning, not as a test, just a fact. I didn't know what to do with that sentence. It stayed with me longer than the oil stain on my sleeve that day. I work at a small repair shop tucked behind a row of medical offices. One of those places people end up only when something's gone wrong. The waiting area smells like burnt coffee and old magazines. There's a bell on the counter that rings too loud, like it's announcing you to the whole room whether you want it to or not. That's where I first saw her. She stood near the door, not rushed, not lost, just taking in the space like she was deciding whether it deserved her patience. Mid-40s, maybe older. Calm posture. Dark blazer over a soft shirt. Hair pulled back without trying too hard. She had that confidence that doesn't ask for permission. The kind you earn by surviving things quietly. Her sister did the talking at first. Younger than her, louder. The car had been making a noise for weeks, she said, and now it finally refused to start. I nodded, asked the usual questions, pretended my hands weren't suddenly too aware of themselves. The older one, her, watched. Not suspicious, just observant. When I explained the issue, she tilted her head slightly, like she was listening past my words. When I paused to think, she didn't rush me. That alone felt like a small kindness. There was a moment, barely anything, where our eyes met and neither of us looked away fast enough. Not long, just long enough to notice the quiet hum under everything. Her sister sat in one of the cracked vinyl chairs, scrolling through her phone, legs bouncing. The older woman stayed standing, arms loosely crossed, gaze drifting around the shop. When I handed over the paperwork, she reached for it at the same time I did. Our fingers brushed. Nothing dramatic. Still, my hand stayed warm longer than it should have. She smiled then. Not wide, not inviting, just polite, with something. While I worked, they waited. I caught glimpses of them through the open bay, her sister talking, gesturing, her listening, nodding, occasionally glancing in my direction when she thought I wouldn't notice. Once, when her sister laughed too loudly, she winced and leaned forward, elbows on knees, face softening like she was tired of carrying sound. When the repair took longer than expected, I apologized. She waved it off. "These things happen," she said. Her voice was steady, lived in. At some point, her sister stood and came closer to the counter. She asked how long it would be. I answered. She studied my face longer than necessary, then looked back at her sister, then at me again. That's when she sat closer. Not touching, just nearer than before. "I trust you," she said, like she was handing me something fragile. I didn't ask why. I just nodded. When it was time for them to leave, the older woman thanked me. Her hand hovered near mine again, hesitated, then dropped back to her side. She held my gaze a second longer this time. Later, after the shop quieted and the bell stopped ringing, I found myself replaying that hesitation, that almost touch, and wondering why something so small felt like the beginning of a sentence I couldn't finish. She came back 3 days later, alone. Different jacket. Same calm walk, like the place would wait for her if she needed it to. I was under a hood when the bell rang, hands deep in grease, radio mumbling something I wasn't listening to. I knew it was her before I stood up. I don't know how. I just did. She held her keys like she might forget what they were for. "I think it's fine now," she said. I just wanted to be sure. I nodded and wiped my hands on a rag that had already given up on being clean. Asked her to pop the hood. She did, then stepped back, arms folding again. Guarded, not closed. There's a difference. Closed is sharp. Guarded is tired. While I checked things, she stayed quiet. No small talk. No hovering questions. She leaned against the counter instead, eyes drifting to the window like she was somewhere else entirely. Every now and then, she rubbed her thumb against the side of her ring finger. No ring. Just the habit. "You work late," she said eventually. Not a question. "Most nights." She nodded. I figured. I noticed her hands when she reached for the coffee cup I offered. Slight tremor she tried to hide by holding it with both hands. Her nails were clean, short, practical. She laughed once, quiet, surprised, when the machine sputtered too loud. then stopped herself like the sound had escaped without permission. You don't have to stay, I said. I can call when it's done. She hesitated. Just a breath. I'll wait. So we stood there. The shop felt smaller with just the two of us. No sister filling the air. No radio this time. Just the ticking of cooling metal and the hum of fluorescent lights. I asked about her day. She gave me the edited version. Work. Traffic. Nothing heavy. Everything heavy. At one point, I asked if she wanted a chair. She shook her head, then stopped herself halfway. Actually, maybe. When she sat, her shoulders dropped like she'd been holding them up all day for someone else. She watched me work, chin resting on her hand. I felt it, the pull to turn, to check if she was still looking. She always was. I'm not usually this. She searched for the word and didn't find it. Her fingers tightened around the cup. Indecisive. She smiled at that. Not amused. Relieved. Yes. The car was fine. It always had been. When I told her, she looked almost disappointed, then embarrassed by that disappointment. She stood, smoothed her jacket, reset herself. At the door, she paused. Her hand hovered over the bell. Thank you, she said, softer than before. For what? She didn't answer. Just met my eyes, held them a second too long, then left, and I stood there with the quiet, wondering why her staying had felt braver than leaving. It started raining before either of us noticed. Not dramatic rain. No thunder announcing itself. Just a steady, quiet soaking that turned the street outside the shop into a blurred smear of light and movement. It was late. Later than I usually kept the bay open, but she was there again, sitting on the same chair she'd chosen last time, coat draped over her lap like she might leave any second. I told myself it was coincidence, that she had reasons. I stopped pretending halfway through the thought. Looks bad out there, I said, mostly to fill the space. She stood and came closer to the window, close enough that I could smell her perfume, something clean, restrained. She hugged her arms, not cold, just contained. I hate driving in this, she said. Feels like the road disappears. You can wait it out. She nodded, didn't move back. The shop after hours is a strange place. Too quiet. Every sound lands harder. The click of my tools. Her shoes shifting on concrete. When I bent to pick something up, she stepped back automatically, then stopped herself like she'd realized she didn't need to. I used to be good at waiting, she said suddenly. I looked up. For things to pass. People to change. She smiled without humor. Turns out some things just stay unfinished. That felt like a door cracking open. I didn't step through it. I stayed where I was, hands on the counter, grounding myself in oil and metal. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. The sound cut the air clean. She glanced at the screen and her face shifted, not fear, not anger. Something older. Tired recognition. She didn't answer it at first. Just let it ring. Then again. I should take this, she said, already turning away. I pretended to focus on the engine, even as her voice dropped lower near the door. I didn't hear the words, just the tone. Careful. Controlled. The way you talk to someone who knows how to hurt you without raising their voice. I'm fine, she said. No. I told you. I can't do this right now. Pause. Yes, I know. When she hung up, she stayed facing the door longer than necessary. When she turned back, she'd put herself together again, but not perfectly. One hand pressed briefly to her ribs, like she was checking something inside. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to bring that here. It's okay, I said. Too quickly. She nodded, then surprised me by stepping closer. Not into me. Just close enough that the space between us felt deliberate. Her voice dropped. Do you ever feel like you're standing too near something you shouldn't touch? I swallowed. Sometimes. She laughed once, soft and short. Good. I was hoping it wasn't just me. The rain picked up. She glanced at the door, then back at me. Her hand lifted, just slightly, as if she might reach for my sleeve, or my wrist, or nothing at all. For a second, neither of us moved. Then the bell at the counter shifted under the vibration of the rain, and I realized how close my hand was to hers. She showed up just before closing, rain-dark hair tucked into her collar, holding a small paper bag like an apology. I brought food, she said. I didn't know if you'd eaten. I almost said no. Not because I didn't want it, but because accepting it felt like crossing something I wouldn't be able to uncross. We ate in the back room, sitting on opposite sides of a narrow table that had seen better decades. The light above us buzzed faintly, flickering just enough to make time feel unreliable. She unwrapped her sandwich carefully, like she was trying not to make noise in a place that wasn't quiet anyway. "This is strange," she said after a while. "Yeah," I agreed. Then, after a beat, "But not bad." She smiled at that, then looked down again. She was tired tonight, more than before. It showed in the way her shoulders rounded when she sat, and how she rubbed the heel of her hand against her eye like she'd forgotten anyone was watching. I noticed everything. How she chewed slowly, how she listened with her whole face, how she paused before speaking like she was checking herself for leaks. "I don't usually do things like this," she said suddenly. "Bring food." She shook her head. "Stay." Then softer, "Let things linger." I didn't ask what she meant. I just nodded, eyes on my hands. I was afraid if I looked at her too directly, I'd show something I didn't have the right to show. Her phone lit up on the table. A name flashed that I didn't recognize, but the way her jaw tightened told me enough. She flipped it face down without answering. "That's someone who shouldn't be calling?" I asked. She let out a breath. "Yes." She didn't elaborate. That was the shared secret, not the details, but the mutual decision to leave them untouched. She reached for her cup, then stopped. Her fingers hovered there, uncertain. I slid it closer without thinking. Our hands brushed. She rose. I should have pulled back. I didn't. Neither did she. Her fingers stayed against mine, warm, still. Not gripping, just resting, like she was reminding herself she existed. "I forget what it's like," she said quietly, eyes still on our hands, "when someone doesn't ask for more." The room felt smaller. Or maybe I did. "You don't owe me anything," I said, even as something in my chest argued otherwise. She finally looked up. Her eyes were too open, too honest. That's the problem. A noise outside, someone laughing, passing by, broke the moment. She withdrew her hand like she'd been burned, stood too quickly, and smoothed her jacket as if it could reset her. "I should go," she said. I walked her to the door. The rain had slowed, but everything outside still gleamed. She hesitated on the threshold, fingers curled around the strap of her bag. She leaned in, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I felt the choice in it. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the food. Not for the repair." I nodded, stayed where I was. She paused, like she might say something else, like she might stay. Instead, she turned, and I stood there, one step from following, one word from stopping her, my hand lifting just slightly before I let it fall. By the fourth time, silence had stopped being comfortable. She didn't come to the counter right away. She stood just inside the door, letting the bell ring once and then settle, like she was bracing herself for what came after. I killed the engine I was working on and wiped my hands slowly, giving her time to decide whether she was staying. She did. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Not about the car. Not for a minute. Just that." We didn't sit this time. We stood near the back wall where the light was dimmer, where the shop noises couldn't pretend to be a distraction. She crossed her arms, then uncrossed them, then let them hang uselessly at her sides. "This has started to feel dishonest," she said. I waited. I knew better than to rush her now. "I don't mean you," she added. "I mean me." She pressed her lips together, like she was holding something in place. "I keep finding reasons to come here. And I don't usually do that. I don't usually let things blur." I nodded once. My throat felt tight, but my voice stayed even. "Neither do I." She looked at me then, really looked. The kind of look that asks a question without wanting the answer. "Do you know how confusing it is," she said, "to feel steadier around someone you shouldn't be leaning on at all?" The room hummed. I could hear the lights, the building settling, my own breath. I wanted to step closer. I didn't. My hands stayed at my sides, fingers curled like they were holding something invisible. "We're not doing anything," I said, and even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. "That's what scares me," she replied. She turned away, walked a few steps, then stopped. Her back to me, shoulders tense. "I've spent years telling myself I was done wanting," she said quietly. "That wanting was messy, that it cost too much." I didn't interrupt. I didn't tell her she wasn't messy. I didn't tell her she deserved more. Those would have been lies meant to comfort me, not her. When she turned back, her eyes were wet but focused. Controlled. I don't know what this is, she said. But it's not nothing anymore. I swallowed. Do you want it to stop? She didn't answer right away. She searched my face, like she was looking for something she might not survive finding. I want to understand why it hurts, she said instead. We stood there, close enough now that I could feel the heat of her. Close enough that if either of us moved, it would mean something we couldn't undo. Her hand lifted, hovered near my chest, then dropped back to her side. Her voice broke, not loudly, just enough. I can't afford to want you, she said. The shift didn't arrive with impact. It came the way fatigue does, quietly, after you've already adjusted your posture around it. She didn't come to the shop that day. She called. I almost didn't answer. Unknown number. I was elbow deep in work, already behind. Something made me wipe my hands and pick up anyway. Hi, she said. Just that. No apology. No explanation. I stepped outside to hear her better. The street was loud, sun bouncing off windshields. I leaned against the brick wall, grounding myself. I found something, she said. And I don't know why I thought of you. That's the problem. I didn't ask what it was. I waited. It's a voicemail, she continued. Old. From years ago. I forgot it existed. A pause. I could hear her breathing. Careful. Measured. I played it by accident. Another pause. Longer this time. He sounds like you. That landed wrong. Or right. I couldn't tell. She explained then, not all at once. In pieces. A man she loved before everything hardened. Someone younger than her. Someone who had believed in her before she learned how to ration herself. He'd left, not dramatically. Just faded. Life, timing, promises that didn't survive being tested. He used to leave messages when he was nervous, she said. Talk too much. Circle the point. A soft, almost embarrassed sound. You do that. I stared at the concrete near my feet, at a crack shaped like a question mark. I'm not him, I said gently. I know, she replied immediately. Too immediately. That's what scares me. She came by later that evening. Not to stay, just to show me. We stood near the counter, shoulder to shoulder, but not touching. She held her phone out, then hesitated before pressing play, like she was asking permission from the air. The voice was younger, nervous, trying to sound steady and failing in a way that felt painfully sincere. Her eyes closed while it played, not to shut me out, to stay standing. When it ended, she didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead, jaw tight. I thought I'd buried that version of myself, she said. The one who waited, who hoped. She swallowed. Then I started coming here. I didn't say anything. I didn't defend myself. I didn't step away either. You didn't do anything wrong, she added quickly. This isn't about you replacing someone. I nodded. My chest felt too full, like a room with no exits. It's about me realizing, she said, voice lower now, that I never stopped missing the way I felt when someone saw me before I learned how to disappear. She finally looked at me then. Not searching, just open. I don't know what this means, she said. But I needed you to know why it feels heavier than it should. I stood there, close enough to feel her steadying herself, close enough to offer something without reaching for it. I'm still here, I said. Not a promise. Just a fact. Her hand brushed my arm. Brief, grounding. She let it rest there for half a second longer than necessary. And in that pause, I understood the shift wasn't toward each other. It was toward something neither of us could unlearn. It felt like something settling into place after resisting it for too long. She didn't come because something was wrong with the car. She didn't pretend this time. She just stood in the doorway, rainless evening behind her, keys loose in her hand. I don't want to keep circling this, she said. I nodded. I'd already turned off the radio. The shop felt different, emptier, or maybe clearer. We sat on the low bench near the wall, not facing each other, just close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Almost. I've been trying to decide, she said, whether this was a distraction or a warning. Which one is it? I asked. She thought for a long time. Long enough that I wondered if the answer mattered less than the asking. Neither, she said finally. It's just honest. That word stayed between us. She told me what she could without breaking herself open. That she wasn't looking to be rescued. That she wasn't ready for promises she couldn't keep. That she knew the distance between our lives wasn't imaginary. I told her I wasn't confused about what this was, or wasn't. That I wasn't waiting for her to become someone else. That being near her had made me steadier, not restless. We sat with that. No bargaining. No convincing. At some point, her hand shifted on the bench. It landed palm up, accidental looking. I didn't take it right away. I let the choice exist. When I finally placed my hand into hers, she exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. Her fingers curled slowly, deliberately. Not possession. Recognition. She leaned her forehead against my shoulder. Just rested it there. The weight of it felt earned. Necessary. I don't want to ruin this by naming it wrong, she murmured. Then don't, I said. We stayed like that. The shop lights hummed. Somewhere outside, a car passed, tires whispering against pavement. The world kept moving without needing us to explain ourselves. After a while, she straightened. Not abruptly, like someone standing after prayer. So, she said, almost smiling, what happens now? I thought about it, not in grand terms. Just in the shape of tomorrow. Of showing up. Of not pretending this hadn't mattered. We keep choosing what doesn't hurt, I said. Even if it's slower. She nodded. Squeezed my hand once before letting go. At the door, she paused. No hovering this time. No unfinished sentences. I'm glad you didn't rush me, she said. I'm glad you came back, I replied. She met my eyes, steady and unafraid. Then she left, and for the first time, the quiet she took with her didn't feel like loss. It felt like something we'd agreed to carry forward, carefully, together. I'm telling this from some distance now, not because it faded, but because it settled. We didn't turn into a story people would recognize from the outside. There were no big announcements, no lines crossed in ways that couldn't be uncrossed. What changed happened quietly, mostly inside me, mostly inside her. The kind of change that doesn't ask for witnesses. She still comes by the shop sometimes. Less often. On purpose. When she does, we talk the way people do when they've already said the important things without words. About work. About weather. About nothing that needs fixing. She stands a little closer than she used to. I notice she doesn't fold her arms anymore. I learned something from her that I didn't know I needed to learn. That restraint isn't the absence of feeling. Sometimes it's proof of it. Sometimes the bravest thing two people can do is not rush toward relief. Before her, I thought love was momentum. Heat. The inability to stop yourself. Now I think it's recognition. The moment you see someone clearly and don't try to pull them out of shape to fit your life. She didn't teach me how to want less. She taught me how to want better. As for her, I won't speak for her, but I see the difference. She laughs more easily now. Doesn't apologize for pauses. When something feels heavy, she names it instead of carrying it quietly like it's her responsibility alone. She once told me she'd forgotten what it felt like to be met without being measured. We didn't promise each other anything dramatic. We promised something smaller and harder. Honesty without pressure. Presence without entitlement. Time without guarantees. And that changed the shape of everything. Some nights, when the shop is closing and the lights hum the same way they always have, I think back to the first time her sister sat close and said, I trust you. I didn't understand then what I was being trusted with. It wasn't her sister's car. It wasn't even her sister. It was the space between two people who could have hurt each other by rushing and chose not to. If there's a lesson here, it's not that love has to look a certain way to be real. It's that sometimes the quietest connections leave the deepest imprint. The ones built on pauses. On almosts. On choosing not to disappear when things get complicated. I'm still younger than her. She's still wiser than me. That hasn't changed. What has changed is how I understand love. Not as something you chase, but something you make room for. And sometimes, that's enough. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?